Hey guys, welcome back to Altaz-Review, where we discuss all kinds of games, old and new. I've been playing Armored Core 6 for a while, and I wanted to talk a little about the game overall, with all the different endings, the varying missions, and how I found the experience after 3 playthroughs. After my first impressions video, I think I've improved a lot in this game, but I also ran into a lot more than I could handle, in terms of skill and in terms of expectations. So let's look deeper into what this game can accomplish after really putting some time and effort into it, and what I accomplished after so many different playthroughs. Well, let's start off with what I thought of the game initially and how my opinions might differ after spending some more time playing different missions. First things first, the difficulty is not as much of an issue as I thought. Initially, I thought the game might be a little too much on the easy side, and it doesn't really push you to be better the way other fromsoftware games work, or the way other challenging games work, even in comparison to older Armored Core games. But the fact is, there were moments I regretted ever looking down on the game's difficulty. Kind of like Sekiro, this game has a steep learning curve, but the challenges don't really care about how much of a noob you might be. You're expected to at least know how to move around, keep track of all the missiles and bullets, and have some idea on how to improve your AC. The progression is quite friendly though, since all the parts you have available are more than enough to pass the current missions. And once you've figured out how best to use each part, you'll end up unlocking newer parts a few missions later. It helps that you can experiment with all kinds of parts based on your needs without feeling overwhelmed by the many options. It's not so much that there's a bunch of bosses that keep getting tougher or have crazy movesets. In fact, there's just a handful of bosses that each pose a good threat while putting up a fun fight, albeit a hard fight. Most of the tougher situations might result from what kind of AC you have to fight and what situations you fight in. Fighting 2 or 3 ACs that work well together, fighting an opponent that has a ton of henchmen to help, completing the mission against a timer, or sometimes just not being prepared for a specific tactic like pulse shields or AC strain. These varying challenges require you to change your AC not just based on your skill, but on how efficient you can be. I found an AC build that can demolish most bosses, but had slow, heavy weapons on an AC that could barely fly. It made it tough to get through several simpler enemies or to fight enemies that require you to stay in the air for a longer time. Even if I cleared the mission, it took 10 times longer to finish than if I had some jumping legs or a 10 missile launcher or some other part that could have made things easier or faster. The next part is a little more subjective, that is, replayability. I mentioned how I didn't appreciate being able to change parts mid-mission, since I wanted to be encouraged to finish a whole mission with a single AC build. But taking into account that there are multiple endings that you can get through New Game Plus and New Game Plus, I was able to use my knowledge of old missions to build an AC that can clear the whole mission in one try, while getting to use all the parts I'd collected and tested throughout the game. I think it's a good way to see your growth without having to ram your head against the same mission just because you don't want to change parts in a checkpoint. But that reasoning is only supplemented by another point. The New Game Plus of Armored Core 6 has learned a lot from Dark Souls 2 due to how things change by choosing different options in the second playthrough, along with a few New Game Plus changes itself. The game has a lot of interesting replayability. I was pretty satisfied by the ending I got in my first playthrough, but I was curious to see what else I'll find in the other mission options. Plus, missions aren't too long, and replaying after all your improvement helps you complete missions in a matter of minutes. Even as a new player who was just learning the systems, by the second playthrough, I felt like a pro. I was already more focused on my fashion choices more than my AC effectiveness, and I still shredded all the enemies and bosses. Bosses like Balteus and Ibis felt great to bully, but they still didn't go down easy. Since there's no real limit on what kind of parts can be paired together, it was fun to play again and experiment with new builds, to look cool or to maximize a single stat and use my personal skill to make up for low health or low speed. I had builds that focused entirely on melee damage or energy weapon damage, and sometimes I used builds that used one weapon as a decoy while I used my main weapon to take advantage of the new opening I created. Even if you complete the game once, the second playthrough lets you play like a true master pilot, and that feeling is the true experience of Armored Core. I kept playing out of curiosity, but New Game Plus and New Game Plus were easy to get into, and there were enough new parts and new missions to keep me playing till the end of the third playthrough. I've heard a lot of comparisons to Armored Core 6, may it be Dark Souls or other mech games, but the most similar feeling I got from any other game was from the Hitman series. Now hear me out. The mission structure that allows you to enter with a certain combination of tools and weapons. The preparation for the best way to complete the mission, if it's about efficiency or speed, and figuring out how the map plays out and where everything is, and then changing your strategy to attempt the mission in the best way. All these different elements are shared between the new Hitman and in Armored Core 6. The penalties to playing badly are different, but whether you get caught in Hitman or take too much damage in Armored Core 6, the feeling is similar. Even how getting a bad result at the end makes you want to play it again, while avoiding killing or getting caught in Hitman, or avoiding damage and wasting ammo in Armored Core 6. Like I said, Armored Core 6 missions give you a lot of similar feelings to how it feels playing Hitman on its master difficulty. And I appreciate that, because it shows that even though Armored Core 6 takes inspiration from Dark Souls and other mech games, it accomplishes something that only Armored Core 6 can accomplish. Then we get to the story and the endings. Beware of spoilers ahead. Seeing how the idea of Coral expands, and you see how you've grown attached to the many characters in each faction. Notably, Walter, Rusty, and Air feel like personal relationships that end up forcing you to choose between them. The way the game frames Walter, his background, the way he cares for you in his own way, and what his true goals are for the Coral. I felt I had to stand by his side and trust him. In fact, I was surprised to hear that the Fires of Raven ending was considered the unequivocal bad ending. But I do get it, since it forced me to fight Air as our ideals clashed and neither of us were ready to step aside. In my second playthrough, I focused more on what Air was saying and feeling, and I found a deeper respect for her character and how she dealt with the situation. She truly wanted to gain my trust and appeal to my feelings of hope for a better world. But it also forced me to fight Carla and Walter, my good friends, and it felt like a bitter betrayal on my part, even if it was for the greater good. It's hard to say which ending is the good or bad one, since they end quite subjectively. Is the Coral truly burned up for good, or will it return? Will the Coral be used by Archivists and the Rubiconians? And will the Coral release into space like Walter feared? Both endings simply end on what information you know at this moment, rather than what will happen in the future as a result of your actions. In both endings, Rusty made the biggest impact, and his brilliant OST makes you tear up in a good way or a bad way, depending on the ending you chose. Unfortunately, Rusty won't be staying to watch either ending, since he's defeated by yourself or he gets blindsided by Walter while you can only see a signal vanish in a second. I'll never forget you, buddy. The final ending, often regarded as the true ending, is even more confusing, but it also shows me what Air could be capable of if she didn't have a conscience. All Mind chooses the path of Coral release, which I can only understand is the very thing Walter feared. But All Mind believes it's necessary for humanity's evolution. Following through with this ending, once again you go against Walter and Carla, while Air decides to trust your decision and stand by your side. But All Mind is gonna deal with Walter and Carla herself. And in the stunning and brilliant final encounter, you meet All Mind in her new AC, an upgraded Mind Gamma core, piloted by the mind of Iguazu, your longtime rival throughout the game. It's a strange surprise to see this background character essentially become the main villain. But here you are. All Mind wants to kill you since she doesn't trust you to stay loyal, which is simply a result of her superiority complex as a character. After defeating All Mind in a less than difficult fight, you face a classic FromSoftware staple, a second boss phase. All Mind shows up with a new imposing AC backed up by two huge machines, which were tough bosses in earlier missions. You're outnumbered and outmatched, but Air comes for your backup in her own piloted AC at the last minute. This moment had me screaming with excitement, and after a tough fight with a lot of elements to focus on, you find victory over All Mind, but you continue the original plan that All Mind wanted in the first place, Coral release. This is the confusing part, but from what I understand, Coral has changed some people into Coral mutations, while many other humans perished from not being compatible with the Coral. Again, it's a subjective ending. Do we need humanity's evolution at the cost of our current state of humanity and at the cost of many lives? That may be a debate for another time and another video. Armored Core 6 learns a lot of lessons from older games by FromSoftware and from other mech games, and it makes sure to keep the overall experience engaging and interesting without wasting time or padding out anything. You're able to platinum the game without feeling drained or burned out. It's a well-done game that stays balanced till the end. I'm glad I played up till New Game Plus Plus, and I look forward to the next AC game. But I would have liked if there was an ending for the Red Guns and Balaam, since I enjoyed those characters so much. But that just shows what a great game is, since I got so attached to each character and each faction. But let me know what you guys think about Armored Core 6 and what your favorite ending was. Also, leave a comment about what other games you'd like to hear about. If you enjoyed the video, please like and consider subscribing. I hope I see you in the next video.